So we're going to look at negative exponents and what they do and what they stand for in the terms of the problem. This is kind of difficult for kids to understand. And so a negative exponent can be rewritten using a positive exponent. So basically what the negative exponent is saying is that value is in the wrong place. So it's asking you to write the reciprocal. So that it is the reciprocal. So if it is on the top, then you're going to move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, then you're going to move it to the top. Okay? And so let me get this up. So basically, x to the negative 5, and I think in here most of these are going to be on the top. So x to the negative 5 would be 1 over x to the 5th. Now, this is where this gets confusing. The m has an exponent of a negative 2, but the 3 has an exponent of 1. The 1 is not negative, so the 3 stays where it's at, and the m squared moves. So only the thing with the negative exponent. So I'm going to use this pink. This is the only thing with the negative exponent. Negative 7 is not a negative exponent. Your exponent is a 1. So the negative 7 and the b cubed stay, but the a to the 4th moves to the denominator and becomes positive. There are going to be reasons why you need to rewrite these as positive. So from here on out, I will never use negative exponents in a final answer. So if I look at this, when you multiply, you add exponents. Okay, so that's correct. You added the exponents. When you multiply, you add the exponents because it's really 1 times 1, which is 1. But I will not take negative exponents in a final answer, so you are going to have to move that to the denominator. So negative exponents are saying that if the negative is on the top, you would move it to the bottom to become positive. If the negative is in the bottom, you're going to move it to the top. So if I rewrite this, I'm going to multiply. So 20, c to the 3rd, because I'm adding, d to the negative, I don't know why I wrote b, d to the negative 4. Okay, so when I rewrite that, this pink, this is the only negative exponent, so it is the only thing that moves. Okay, that is the only thing that moves. So you do the math just like you normally do the math, and then you move things. Okay, so if I look at question 6, I multiply, that's a negative 18, x to the negative 11. When you multiply, you add exponents. X to the negative 11 has a negative. This 18 has an exponent of 1. So it stays where it's at, and x to the 11th moves to the denominator. Okay. All right. So if I do this next one, I'm going to multiply. So a squared, b to the 5th, c to the negative 5th. Okay. So again, the only thing that has a negative exponent is this one right here. So my answer is a squared, b to the 5th, and then c to the 5th moves to the denominator. All right, so this next problem, number 8, goes back to what we learned in the past. I'm going to put a 1 here, and then I'm going to put that in. Okay, I'm going to go put that into both of them, so that would go into both. So I would get 8 to the negative 2, p to the negative 10. 8 to the negative 2 is going to be 8 squared, but you move it to the denominator. P to the negative 10 also needs to go to the denominator, which means there's nothing in the numerator, so you have to write something there to hold the place value. Okay, so here I multiply this in by 1, and so I would have 5 to the negative 3 y squared, y to the negative 6, because I got to multiply it into both. And so this would be 1 over 5 to the 3rd. So negative means it moves to the bottom. And third would be 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Times 5 is 125. So this is 125 y to the 6th. Got to make it be a positive exponent. Okay. So on 10, I'm going to put 1s on these. And I'm going to have 3 to the negative 4. R to the negative 4, S to the 12th. So the ones with the negative exponents are these ones. That pink is bad on that green. We'll make it like a lighter pink. I said I'd use pink. Okay, so 3 to the 4th, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And yes, I know it's a negative 4, but I'm not really so much worried about the negative, just tells me where to put the final answer. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 81. Get rid of that green line. So that 81 is going to go on in the denominator because it's negative. So 81 r to the 4th, but the s to the 12th stays because it has a positive exponent. So you only move the things that have negative exponents. If it has positive exponents, it stays exactly where it's at. Okay. All right, so on the next one, I'm going to put this the 1 there. So I'm going to do 6 to the negative 2, x to the negative 10, y to the 8th. Okay, and so 6 to the negative 2, 6 squared is 36, so that goes on the bottom because it's negative. X to the 10th goes on the bottom, and y to the 8th would go on the top. All right, so on the next one, I personally don't use negative exponents for this. I do this. There's 2 h's on the top. There's 5 h's on the bottom. The bigger h is on the bottom, so my leftover is going to be on the bottom. So 2 of these would cancel, and I'm left with 1 over h to the 3rd. Some teachers teach to subtract, and then I just learned over the years, because we're going to do a lot of this as you get into high school, I've learned over the years it's easier just to make the exponent positive, move things around, and then than it is to, it's easier to make the exponent positive than it is to try to subtract weird minuses. So what I mean is anything that I highlight has to move. So the c to the 7th stays, and then this c squared is going to come down and be positive. The d to the 1st is going to come down and become positive, and the d squared is going to go up and be positive. So now I'm going to, now that I got them all positive, d squared and d, that's going to be a d on the top, and then c to the 9th in the denominator. Okay, so if I were you, I would just move everything that's negative first, and if you want to use a highlighter to do that, you can. So if this is the only thing that's negative, so I'm going to rewrite this entire problem, but that W, I'm going to move to the top. Okay, so 14 divided by 7 was 2 when I was in 3rd grade. It's still 2. So this is 2W to the 6th. Okay, again, on the next one, the only thing that has a negative exponent is that one. So I'm going to rewrite it. So negative 10 m squared n to the 5th over 2m cubed. So when I was in 3rd grade, negative 10 divided by 2, well, I guess 10 divided by 2 is 5. That's a negative 5. And then n to the 6th. And if I write these n's out, I have 3 m's on the bottom and 2 m's on the top. The bigger one is on the bottom, so my leftover is going to be on the bottom. So 3 minus 2 is 1, but the bigger one is on the bottom, so that's my answer. These get very confusing, okay? All right, so after we've done that, I would like you to do these 4 questions, 16, 17, 18, and 19. I'm going to do what I've done before, where all I'm going to do is write the answers. So if you get wrong answers and they don't match, then I want you to get a hold of me and say, notes page 8, like I got wrong answers. Okay, pause and do them. All right, so if you miss it, go ahead and see if you can figure out what you did. And if you can't figure out what you did, then let me know. So the answer on 16 is 3y over x to the 4th. The answer on 17 is 5/6, and then it's b squared over c. Okay. The answer on 18 is a negative 1/2, and I don't really care if the 1 is there. And then on the top, it's q cubed, and on the bottom, it's p r to the 7th. And then the last one, you have a negative s to the 4th on the top, and I don't care if it's a 1, and I don't care if the negative sign's on the bottom. It doesn't matter. And then 6r cubed t to the 4th. Okay, so if you missed any of those, let me know right away so that we can, I'll leave those on there for a second so you can look at them, so we can figure that out. Okay, On number 20, so you have to do exponents first. So that's a negative exponent. So if I put that in, it's 4 to the negative 1, x to the negative 6, y to the negative 12. So all of those are going to move to the bottom. X to the 6, y to the 12. Okay, plus, and this would be 2 to the negative 3, x to the negative 6, y to the negative 12. 2 to the negative 3 is 1/8, because 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I get 8, and then x to the 6, y to the 12. This is kind of, sort of a tricky question, okay? And so I do have like terms. And so this is, I'm going to rewrite it a little bit. So my number in front here is 1/4, and my number in front there is 1/8. And isn't the variable x to the 6th, y to the 12th? So when I add, so like if I had 3x plus 5x, isn't that 8x? Don't you just add the numbers in front and keep the x? So I'm going to add these numbers in front. So 1/4 plus 1/8. Well, I'd have to get common denominators. So 2/8 plus 1/8 is 3/8. That is actually the answer to that question. Okay, and a lot of kids, wait. Oh, I forgot to square that. I lied. Hold on, back up. This is a squared. So that squared is 16. So that's 1/16 plus 1/8. So I got to make them both 16ths. So that would be 2/16. So my answer is 3/16. Sorry, I forgot to square that. See, these are really easy to make mistakes on. Okay, so on number 21, completely different question because now I'm multiplying. So I'm going to take the negative 2 in, negative 4, y to the negative 6. Try not to mess up. X to the negative 15th, y to the negative 12th. Okay, all right, so you're multiplying. So when you multiply, you add exponents. I would do that before you start moving things. These are both negative exponents, so they both go to the denominator. Okay, and that's your answer. I would like you to pause the video and do these questions. If you want to do them one at a time, because they are kind of hard, and just see if they're right as you go, that is fine with me, okay? Because these are harder. So pause and at least do 22. So on 22, I got to times the top first. So, because there's no exponents up there. So I'd have 30a to the 12th over a negative 12a to the 14th. So 30 12ths, 6 goes into both of them. 6 goes in here 5 times. 6 goes in there a negative 2 times. And if I write out my a's, I've got 14 on the bottom and 12 on the top. So 12 of them will cancel and leave me with 2 on the bottom. So I'm subtracting, but then I leave it where the bigger one is. So 14 minus 12 is 2, and those are going to stay on the bottom. Okay, so if you haven't done 23 yet, go ahead and pause and try it. So you've got to take care of this exponent first. So you got to square everything. So that's 9x squared y squared times 2x to the 4th y cubed over 6x to the 8th y. So now I'm going to times the top, 18x to the 6th y to the 5th. You add exponents when you multiply. And now you divide. 18 divided by 6 is 3. And if you look at your x's, your bigger x's are on the bottom. So you're going to have 2 left over on the bottom. And if you look at your y's, your bigger y's are on the top. So your final answer is 3y to the 4th over x squared. Okay, so pause the video if you need to, but I would like you to try question 24. So I'm going to square everything on the top. Negative 6 times a negative 6 is a positive 36. X to the 8th, y to the 12th. Give up. Y to the 12th. Tonight when I go upload all these videos, I will get a new tip for my pen. Okay, on the bottom, I'm doing a negative 4 times a negative 4 times a negative 4. And so that becomes 16 times a negative 4, which is a negative 64. So I have a negative 64, x to the negative 9, y to the 15. So my only negative exponent is that one, so it's going to move. So I'd have 36, x to the 8th, y to the 12th. Why is it just the y to the 12th that it just is angry about? something in the way I'm writing it. Oh, Lordy, please keep recording. Okay, y to the 12th. And then I'm bringing up that x to the 9th, negative 64, y to the 15th. Okay, so 36 and 64, I believe 4 goes into both of them. 4 goes into 36 9 times, and 4 goes into 64 negative 16 times. My x's are both on the top, so you add x to the 17th. And my y's, if you look at your y's, 12 on the top, 15 on the bottom. The bigger one is on the bottom, so the leftovers are going to be on the bottom after you cancel them. So there's your answer. And I don't care where the negative sign is. If you moved it to the top, that's fine. Okay, so pause the video, and I would like you to try to do 25. So I'm going to multiply across the top. That's 18, b to the 6th, c to the 5th. You add when you multiply. Over 10, b to the 8th, c to the 8th. You add when you multiply. And now I'm going to reduce. So 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. My b's, the bigger ones on the bottom, so b squared on the bottom. And my c's, the bigger ones on the bottom, so c cubed on the bottom. Okay? All right, so I would like you to try to do this, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've seen ones like this on the last 10 questions of the ACT. This is a doozy, so you can't get angry. But the first thing you should do is the inside. Ignore the cube till the end. So just pretend like the cube isn't even there. And go ahead and take everything. So you're going to have on the top, you're going to have 2 to the negative 2 times x to the negative 8 times y to the 6th times 2 to the negative, 2 to the 4 times x to the negative 4 times y to the negative 8 over 2x to the negative 7, y to the negative 3. Then once you get that whole inside simplified, then I would take it to the 3. Okay, so I'm going to take, and you can pause at any time, but if you want to try this, I'm going to take and highlight anything that has negative exponents. That 2 down there does not. And so I'm going to move anything that has negative exponents. It just seems to work better. So on the top, the stuff that stays is y to the 6th times 2 to the 4th times, and I'm going to bring up the x to the negative 7 and the y to the negative 3 from the bottom. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing. The 2 stays, and I'm bring down the 2 to the negative 2. Oh, sorry, it's going to be a positive when I move it. And then I'm bringing down the x to the 8th. I'm bringing down the x to the 4th, and the y to the negative 8th. I'm bringing it down. So now I'm going to go across the top, and 2 to the 4th. Okay, so 2 times 2, 2 squared is 4. Times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. So 2 to the 4th. I have on the top, I'm going to move that puppy way over here because I think I'm going to need more room. So I have a 16 on the top, and then I have I have an x to the 7th, and I have a y to the 9th. Okay, on the bottom, 2 squared is 4, and then I'm timesing that by 2, so that's 8. Okay, and then I have x to the 12th and y to the 8th. Okay, you can take everything to the 3rd if you would like, but I personally think it would be easier. 16 divided by 8 is 2. And then my bigger x is on the bottom, so x to the 5th is going to be on the bottom, and my bigger y is on the bottom, so y to the 9th is going to be on the bottom. Hold on, I'm checking my y's. So that y comes up, and it's y to the 9th, and that y goes down. It's y to the 8th. My pen, there we go. It's y to the 8th. There we go. That's so much better. I put 18, and I don't know why. I don't know if that was the pen, and I know I need a new tip. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put baby 1s on these, and now I'm going to cube them. 2 cubed is 8, y cubed over x to the 15th. Would I give you one like this? Heck no, not in Algebra 1. But I'm going to tell you right now that is an Algebra 2 question. There are some very difficult ones in Algebra 2. So that's why we're kind of learning this, is to get to this point.